نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. Last week we started this hadith narrated by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim and others. It's a very important hadith and it covers many aspects of our dealings with other people. And it's important to bear in mind that the Quran is a cure for all the problems that the heart is inflicted with. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was for lack of a better word, he was the physician of all of these weaknesses and ailments and sicknesses that pertain to character and behavior, the ailments that pertain to beliefs and practices, the ailments that are the cause of all the problems in the world. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the physician who brought the cures for all of these things. So in this hadith, narrated on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالظَّنِّ فَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ أَكْذَبُ الْحَدِيثِ. Avoid suspicions and assumptions, because assumptions are the most wrong, are the most incorrect of all speech. The reason being that one is what a person thinks inside, and the other is what a person says with his tongue. And a person, he may be cautious in what he says, but it is rare that a person is cautious about what he thinks and the way he thinks. So, of all the thoughts that come in a person's mind, all the feelings and expressions that a person has, from amongst those that he feels and from amongst those that he expresses with his tongue, the ones that he feels many times, they are lies. So we were talking about the thinking process, of correcting the thinking process, of the way we think about things and the way we think about people. And this also refers to those assumptions that we make without having any clear proof. Wrong assumptions that are made without having any clear proof, clear evidence. We're just assuming that something is because we feel that way. Sometimes we have presumptions. These are ideas that are already in our minds. We are carrying these ideas around. It could be a doubt that has been brought into our mind due to some experience or due to something we have heard. Now we are carrying that thought. And whatever we see in the world around us, we are using that thought as the standard for judging whether it is right or wrong. And that thought may itself be wrong. So all the judgments that are made based on that thought, they're also going to be wrong. For example, somebody, he has a bad experience, a bad personal experience with someone who prays salat. Somebody prays 5 times a day. Someone has a bad experience with him. So, his experience is going to tell him that this person is not to be trusted. But it is not correct for him to now assume that everybody who prays is not to be trusted. But if he, out of the narrowness of his thinking or his own ignorance, if he lets this thought come into his mind, now every time he sees somebody who prays 5 times a day, he's going to have a wrong thought about him. He's going to have an incorrect, a misassumption about him. And this person is going to be guilty of this sin of su'ul dhan. Now, even if somebody good comes along from those who pray 5 times a day and tries to tell him something good, he's going to close his mind. Say, no, I know these guys. I know what they're all about. So he will deprive himself of khair, and he will be guilty of this, of this sin, of this mistake, of having wrong assumptions about believers. This is just an example. This can apply to anything. Sometimes shaitan brings a thought about a specific caliber or category of people. Like I gave the example of 3 people who pray salat. Shaitan may bring this idea in one's mind about people who do other religious activities. Sometimes it may not have anything to do with religion. It may have something to do with a culture or with an ethnic background. Somebody has a wrong experience with somebody. Obviously, everybody is from some background. Now he has a wrong experience with somebody, from a specific ethnic background. Now he makes a judgment. He makes a judgment that all of these people are like this. No, I don't trust this. I don't trust this, this nation, or this people of that country, or people of that language, people of that, I don't trust them because these are dishonest people. That is an incorrect judgment. We are not allowed to form these kinds of judgments. And in fact, it is those judgments that are incorrect that are being addressed in this hadith. And most of the time, because these judgments are wrong, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, "Inna dhanna akdhabul hadith." They're mostly lies. So this person on this incorrect premises and on this incorrect pretense, he is building a whole theory and a whole thinking, a whole lifestyle. So we are not to assume anything. Once Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu wrote a letter to Abu Darda radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was at that time the responsible person of Damascus. So he said, I want you to send me a list of all of those people who are openly disobeying Allah's commandments. Openly. They're committing crimes, or they're breaking the major commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're breaking them openly. I want you to send a list. Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, when he received this message, he became very worried. He said, how do I know? How am I supposed to know about these people? I have nothing to do with them, and I have no way of finding out who they are. So his son, whose name was Bilal, said that, I know who they are. These are prominent, famous people. Everyone knows what they're doing. So he quickly wrote a name, the list of people, and he gave it to his father. He said, just send this. So Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, a very, very wise man, he said, how would you know who they are? How do you know about them? Unless you have some affiliation and association with them, or unless you yourself are one of them. Then he said, go and correct yourself. And he put that list away. He didn't send it. He said, it means you have an eye for people that are doing wrong. Your mind is storing the names, it's listing the names of these people that are doing wrong. Who are you to do that? It means you're going around looking for such people who are doing wrong, and you're storing their names in your mind. So he told his son, go fix yourself, go correct yourself. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi has quoted this narration in Al-Adab al-Mufrad. Another riwayah quoted by Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi in that same book, that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu says that sometimes someone gets something stolen from him. So there's one person who's stealing and the other person who's the victim of that theft. He says sometimes that person who got something stolen from him, he has such a bad reaction and such a negative reaction to that theft, and he starts having so many wrong thoughts that in the sight of Allah he becomes worse than the person who actually stole from him. Sometimes this person, his thoughts, I'll tell you, if for example that person happened to be someone who is religious, he starts blaming all religious people. If that person happens to be from a certain tribe or a clan or people of a language, he starts blaming all of those people. Now he has the sin of not blaming one person, he has a sin, you see, of slandering a whole nation of people. It could be a family. And this person, he starts blaming and slandering that whole family. He slanders the person's parents, that you raised him like this. He has no right to say that. So he goes on in this negative reaction to such an extent that he falls lower than the person who actually committed that crime. إِيَّاكُمْ وَالظَّنَّ فَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ أَكْذَبُ الْحَدِيثِ. Then, this hadith, look, the kalam of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is, you see, he was given Jawami' al-Kalim. One of the mu'jizat, one of the miracles of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was his kalam. In this beginning part of the hadith, which we spoke about in detail last week, he addresses the root cause of all the other things that are to be discussed in this hadith that we will touch on today. It is the wrong, the negative thinking. It is the forming of incorrect judgments, unfair judgments in our minds. Based on this, he gives the next command, the next advice. He says, وَلَا تَحَسَّسُوا وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. Don't go trying to listen. We gave different interpretations for tahassus and tajassus. And one of the interpretations of tahassus was to use your senses. It's from his. To use your senses, meaning your eyes or your ears, to listen on to what people are saying or to spy on people. To see what you can get, what information you can get. Always hearing to see who's done something wrong, who's done something bad. Or trying to, you see, collect information about people. And tajassus means you're going one step beyond that. You're not even now just relying on what you've heard or what you've seen, but now you are trying to dig into things that you haven't seen. Things that you don't know about. Now you are starting to investigate. So both things we have been prohibited from. Where does that start? Where do you suppose that started? He has something in his mind, that's why he's doing that. There is something wrong with his thinking. There is something wrong with the way he is thinking that is causing him to go and, you see, and sort of, they say poke around, poke his nose where it doesn't belong. It's starting with an incorrect method of thinking inside. Then the next advice, وَلَا تَحَاسَدُوا. Don't be jealous of one another. Don't be jealous. Jealousy, the definition of jealousy, is to wish for someone to be deprived of something. تَمَنِّي زَوَالِ نِعْمَةِ الْغَيْرِ. To wish that a blessing that somebody has is no longer with him. So it could be anything. It could be a ni'mah of dunya, could be wealth, could be children, could be health, could be happiness, could be some quality that he has, a skill that he has. These are all ni'mas of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It could be something of, you see, deen, piety. Somebody is doing a lot of work of deen. He wishes that that person should stop doing that good. That is hasad. Whether he gets it or not is secondary. Whether he gets it or not, this is secondary. That is the definition of hasad. To wish to have something that somebody had, without wishing that that should leave him, this is called ghibta. This is envy. Somebody has something, says, oh, I wish I had one of those too. This is not haram. This is not haram. To wish that you had something that someone else has, by in itself is not haram. Of course, if it's things of dunya, then there's another rule that applies. That in deen, we should look at people that are higher than us, and in dunya, we should look at people that are lower than us. And we should not, always be wishing to have what other people had, because it leads to greed, and that takes one away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a separate point. But for the thought to come in one's mind that, if I had that, it would be nice. This by itself is not haram. Same thing in things of deen. You see somebody who is doing a lot of ibadat, say, oh, I wish I could do a lot of ibadat as well. This is ghibta. That is not what is being talked about in this hadith. We are talking about, in this hadith, that sentiment that it swells up very quickly inside a person and it's not always voluntary. It comes up inside a person when we see someone who has something that we don't. We say, man, why does he have that? How come he has it? He shouldn't have it. This is hasad, this is haram. And a person who does that, ulama have written that that person is actually filing a complaint to Allah. He is making an objection against Allah. As if he is trying to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a wrong decision by giving it to that person and not to this person. So hasad is a bigger crime than meets the eye. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, La tahasadu. Don't be jealous of one another. One person is thinking something negative about one person, and the next guy is also thinking something negative about the first fellow. When this happens in the ummah, the hasad is when multiple people are involved. When this starts happening in the ummah, you have a nation of people or a community of people, all of whom want to see the other one stripped of something. Everyone wants to see the next person deprived of something. So that means, first of all, these people, they do not have the recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do not have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And secondly, it creates a very unhealthy social environment for people to exist in, where every person has his eye on what the next person has and wants that thing to be removed from him. Whether it's a position, whether it's wealth, whether it's fame and honor, whether it's deen, whether it's family, whether it's whatever it is, you have a whole community of people, every one of them wants that next guy should be deprived of something. These people can never ever be united on anything. Why? Because each person wants the next person to lose something. And as long as we have that kind of a sentiment present in the hearts of people, there is no chance of unity. There is no chance of unity. This disease of the heart must be corrected in order for there to be any level of unity or harmony or even a pleasant atmosphere. Sometimes, and we may have experienced this in our lives, that within a family, these kinds of sentiments start coming up. It's a family. Could be an immediate family between brothers or siblings, or it could be an extended family. Everyone knows what that does to the environment within that family. How all of a sudden, it's not so easy to meet the next person anymore. Why? Because everyone is concealing something against the next person. They say in Urdu, dil mein chor hai. Everyone has a little thief sitting inside, wanting to rob something from the next fellow. So automatically, instead of being drawn together, these people will be pulled apart. There will be detachment. There will be a separation. There'll be a gap. There'll be a lack of communication. And that is going to lead to strife. It's going to lead to arguments, disagreements. And again, oh, they're planning something. Those people are planning something. Those people are doing something. Those people are saying something. They've said something. They've done something. But now the whole family has broken apart. وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا. Don't turn your backs on each other. Dubur, it means a person's back. Plural is adbar. So, tadabara, it means that each person turns his back towards the next person. Turning away. This hadith, this word, la tadabaru, is pointing towards something that has been described in many, many ahadith. And that is severing relations with other Muslims. Do not cut yourself off. Do not cut yourself off from others. Comes in hadith, لا يحل لمؤمن أن يهجر أخاه فوق ثلاث فمن هجر أخاه فوق ثلاث فمات دخل النار. It is not permissible for a Muslim to cut himself off from his Muslim brother for more than 3 days. It means to purposely not talk to him, to purposely cut himself off. Some ulama have given tafsir of this, that if that one says salam, this one does not want to reply. Or they refuse to say salam to each other. This is also included in this. He's seeing him, he's passing by him. So if a person dies in that state, that he is cutting off relations with a Muslim, comes in a hadith that this person is going to have to go to Jahannam. And many, many ahadith have this. In numerous ahadith it's mentioned that every Monday and Thursday, the a'mal are taken up and presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept the good a'mal of certain people. All of their a'mal they're rejected. And one of those types of people is the one who refuses to communicate with, refuses to say salam to, refuses to speak with his Muslim brother. All his good, he might be doing so many good a'mal, other a'mal. But because of this, he draws the anger of Allah to such an extent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want to look at any of his a'mal. Similar narration is found regarding the 15th of Sha'ban. There's many ahadith, about 6-7 ahadith, just about the 15th of Sha'ban, and similar amount of ahadith regarding, Monday and Thursday. So in all of those ahadith, we find one thing common. All of those ahadith have this one thing in common, that these people who are engaged in this, cutting people off and saying, I'm not going to speak to him. So these people have been deprived of the forgiveness of Allah, and they have been deprived of the acceptance of their a'mal. And if that person, that Muslim happens to be a family member, then it's even worse. It's even worse. Islam has come with bringing the families closer and closer and closer together. Islam wants the families to be living with a lot of love and happiness and harmony. Islam has not only encouraged it, Islam has made it compulsory that you must live like that. So don't turn your backs on each other. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh, in tafsir of La Tadabaru, he says turning your face away. You see somebody coming, you turn your face away from them. Not having the right to do so. Yes, if that person has broken a command of Allah, and it is only because of that a person cuts off ties with him, then he will not fall under the wa'id of all of those ahadith. If it's only for that reason, if the bughd is for Allah, al-hubbu fillah wal-bughdu fillah, if that severing of the ties is only for the sake of Allah, then this person, all of those wa'ids do not apply to that person. But we need to see inside, is that if I do it, am I really doing it only for the sake of Allah? Or are there some other motives and other elements also? وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا. Don't have hatred and ill feelings towards one another. Don't have ill feelings. It comes in one hadith that فَإِنَّ الْبَغْضَةَ هِيَ الْحَالِقَةِ, that to have ill feelings towards Muslims, this is like a blade that shaves away all of your a'mal, just like a blade shaves away someone's hair. Just like that, this is like a blade that just slices away all the good a'mal and wastes them. So a person could be doing so many a'mal, so many good deeds, but inside he has negative feelings towards Muslims, negative feelings towards people. That negative feeling itself is a sin, and that negative feeling is having his good deeds wasted. That's why a person who has this kind of, you see, this problem or this weakness of having hatred in his heart or having negative feelings in his heart regarding other Muslims, this person will never ever enjoy his ibadah. He will not. And this person will not, through his ibadat, he will not be getting closer and closer to Allah. He will be stuck in the same spot. Why? The reason for that is because his amal are simply not being accepted. Of course, nobody knows that around him. He may not know it himself. But remember, when a good deed is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the automatic result of that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you tawfiq to do more. And a good deed is accepted by Allah. One of the signs of it is that a person feels closer and closer and closer to Allah. That deed is actually going to bring him closer to Allah. So people who have these kinds of ill feelings, they might be doing a lot of ibadat, but the fact is that on one side they're doing their ibadah, on the other side their ibadah is just going down the drain. وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. Two translations of this sentence. O servants of Allah, become brothers. This is one translation. And the other translation is, become the servants of Allah in a state that you are living like brothers. And both interpretations are correct. Allama Qurtubi rahmatullah alayhi has chosen the second one. That become the servants of Allah. Kunu ibadallahi ikhwanan. Ikhwanan will be hal. And ibadallah will be the maf'ul bihi of kunu. And in the first translation, kunu is the fi'l amr. And ikhwana will be the maf'ul bihi. And ibadallah is jumla mu'tarida. It is a khitab, it is a nida. O servants of Allah. So, both interpretations are correct. O servants of Allah, become brothers. Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. So if you are brothers, what does it mean? With this we say we are brothers? No, become brothers. Your relationships with each other, your dealing with each other, should be just like blood brothers that have grown up, you see, from the same parents. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that because all the believers are brothers, if a problem arises, rectify it. أَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. Rectify the problems between two brothers. Anytime an issue arises, issues will arise. Issues will always arise. Sometimes out of misunderstanding, sometimes because of somebody's mistake in overdoing something or in underdoing something. Ifrat and tafrit. So misunderstandings and small conflicts will arise, but as soon as it arises, settle it. Rectify it. Don't let it carry on for days and then weeks and then months and then years and make it a divide between brothers, between families, between friends. Don't let that happen. And according to the second interpretation, become the servants of Allah, become the slaves of Allah in such a way that you are also brothers. Yani do the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together, with togetherness. Don't let your worship pull you away from others. Instead, you should be worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a state that you are joining the brotherhood and increasing the brotherhood of Muslims. And if you are doing that, then it means your worship is on the right pattern. And if your worship is segregating you from people, making you cut yourself off from people, making you doubt and suspect people, or making you sever relations with people, it means something is wrong with your worship also. So these are the golden advices that are mentioned in this hadith. In other ahadith, other narrations of the same hadith, other words have also been added. In one hadith, وَلَا تَنَاجَشُ has been mentioned. Najash means that if a person is going to purchase something, so A is purchasing from B, C comes along, he sees that there's a deal going on. So he asks B, how much are you going to sell that for? He says, well, I'm selling it to him for $20. So C says, you know what, I'll pay you $25. But he doesn't have the intention to buy it. Inside his heart, he has this wicked idea. He says, why is this guy getting such a good deal? He should pay a little bit more. Then he forces that person also to raise his bid. He says, okay, fine, I'll give 30. He says, okay, fine, I don't want it anymore. So he raised the price of it, not for any benefit of himself, but just to harm that next person. This is also haram. It's called najash. And anything directly or indirectly that results in that, just to mess up a deal or mess up something just to make somebody suffer a little bit more, this is not permissible. And وَلَا يَبِعْ بَعْضُكُمْ عَلَى بَيْعِ بَعْضٍ. It means that once a deal has been finalized between two people, then it is not permissible for you to go in with another bid. Once a deal has been, one is that, offers are coming in for something, a commodity. Could be anything. The person is open. So one person makes a bid and the other person makes another bid. There's nothing wrong with that. But once a bid has been accepted and an understanding has been reached that this person is going to buy this for that much, now it is not permissible for you to come in and try to break that deal and say, no, brother, don't sell it to him. You know what? I'm going to give you more. This is not permissible. Of course, things like this are going to break apart the ummah. Another hadith, another riwayah, that لا يخطب أحدكم على خطبة أخيه. Same thing applies to marriage. If one person has proposed somewhere to get married, and the proposal has been accepted, then now it is not permissible for a third guy to come in and say, no, don't marry him, marry me. Yeah, if no proposal has been accepted yet, and the girl's side is still open to proposals, and one person proposes, it is permissible for another person to propose as well. But this thing, you can see how Islam is teaching us, don't cut people, and don't sabotage the dealings of people, don't ruin, the affairs and the matters of people. So these are some of the wonderful teachings in this hadith. I did not go into too much more detail, but I think this much detail is sufficient for us to understand what the hadith is trying to say. So this gives us a lot to work on, actually. Like I said, these are the remedies for our hearts. These ahadith are the remedies for our hearts. They're the remedies for the problems within ourselves, within our families, and in fact within society at large. And that's really why we should be coming here. And when we come with this intention that inshallah I'm going to get cures and solutions from the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then you will see that you will get a very clear and a proper understanding of that hadith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the understanding and enable us to implement these things in our lives and revive these teachings in the entire ummah. I wanted to make one quick consultation with you. As you can see, the time for Maghrib is getting later and later. And I know that some brothers, they also come from some distance. If you brothers think it's appropriate, this is entirely up to you. If you like, we can change the time of the dars for at least the next month or so, the next couple of months.